When it comes to watch releases, 2025 has started off with a bang. And so today, I want to go over 10 watch releases so far and why I like them, why I didn't like them, or why I feel they're just totally overpriced. So let's get right into it. So there's no doubt about it, 2025 is going to be an exciting year for watch releases as a number of brands will be celebrating a number of important milestones. The likes of Audemars Piguet, Vacheron Constantin, Rolex with the GMT Master 2 line, amongst a number of other brands, are celebrating some really important anniversaries this year. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing all the amazing releases they will have to offer, and hopefully they meet all of our expectations and even potentially exceed them. Now, so far, 2025 has definitely started off great with a number of interesting releases, some that really hit the mark, some that didn't. And so let's start off with number one, which is the IWC Portuguese release in rose gold. So they released two new watches, one in 40mm with the classic sub-seconds at 6 o'clock, and the other with the Portuguese or 7-day movement in 42mm. Now, these are very classic looking timepieces, both from pretty established model lines, both in rose gold, both with a silver/white dial. So I would say overall, they're kind of interesting releases, but I wouldn't say they're that exciting. Last year, IWC released a number of really cool watches playing with some interesting dials. The Obsidian dial, namely, and the Ice Blue dial were two of my personal favorites. And I would really like to see IWC expand upon that use of color in these classic kind of contemporary model lines that are just timeless classics from the brand. But overall, I think this is an interesting release in the sense that it's just a very classy aesthetic, well executed from IWC. I think the price points is definitely fair. And overall, I think it is an interesting watch and one to look out for the future. Although IWC may not have the hype at retail like some other brands do, they are one of the most established, renowned brands in the world, and there's no doubt about it, the quality is there in their movements. Next up is a back to basics release from Panerai with the release of the 47mm PAM 1628. Now this features a 47mm case with a time-only format, a 3-day power reserve, and has this really interesting, almost like grain charcoal dial. I'm a big fan of the aesthetics of this watch. I think this is exactly what Panerai needs to keep doing to ultimately really go back to their roots, right? These military-inspired tool watches with kind of interesting dials like they did in this case here. I think this is really where Panerai excels, this back-to-basics approach of almost military-inspired sports watches. My one gripe with the watch, as many of you will have, is the 47mm case size. I really like the fact that they're experimenting with 40, 42, even 44mm case sizes in greater quantity. So when they go back to the larger sizes, I understand that's faithful to the history of the brand, but ultimately it isn't necessarily well-fitting for most watch collectors. So again, great release overall. I wish it was a little bit smaller so I could personally wear it for selfish reasons. But at the end of the day, I think it is a true back-to-basics approach that I really want to see Panerai do in increasing fashion. Next up is the watch that hit the watch world by storm, something that we all expected from Vacheron Constantin for a very long time, or at least hope for it to be released, and that is the release of the Steel 222. Now, of course, the Gold 222 came out with great acclaim and great popularity, and is still an amazing seller for the brand, and it's that ultimate kind of sport chic model from Vacheron Constantin that I think was missing in their catalog, because in terms of the overseas itself, it kind of plays at a weird spot where the 41mm size generally won't suit kind of smaller wrists, and the 35mm overseas kind of is a little bit too small. But this watch at 37mm kind of blends the perfect proportions with that historical kind of design that really lends it to be a perfect everyday wear and really just a perfect watch overall. Now again, my one gripe with this wristwatch, the fact that it comes with a white day wheel as opposed to a color matched blue day wheel, it's just a small gripe, but overall the watch is fantastic, right? It does come with this kind of matte blue dial. I'm really interested to actually see it side by side with my blue Traditionnelle because they kind of have a similar dial. I would be really upset if they had the same kind of dial, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. It is a beautiful watch, and I think that the price point is actually perfect. I know a lot of people were comparing it to, for example, the Royal Oak, which this comes slightly over the 3-hand Royal Oak. I believe the retail being around $32,000. Now, of course, you get everything else that you love, that incredible bracelet. No micro adjustment on this bracelet, but overall the links are pretty small, so you could size it kind of appropriately for your wrist. And again, I think at that 37mm case size, it's that perfect sweet spot for those who can't pull off the overseas, and ultimately is just a timeless classic that Vacheron Constantin releases and it's just going to be another hit, no doubt about it. Now, the next release that I personally wasn't the biggest fan of is actually the Omega Speedmaster Meteorite Moonphase. Now, the biggest reason is the retail price. At $17,000, it's hard for me to find value in this timepiece. Now, I understand the merits of ownership, the fact that it has a meteorite dial. Of course, it's a brand new movement in a smaller case size of 43 millimeters, which again, I still feel is a little bit too big for this wristwatch. I would love to see it in 42 millimeters or less. But if you're looking for a meteorite dial moonwatch, there's been a ton of different variations over the years that came in at a much discounted price point than this one specifically. And specifically on the secondary market, you could pick up some absolute bargains when it comes to Meteorite Speedmaster. So it's hard for me really to see the merits of ownership picking this watch up new at retail. I think it's a beautiful design. I love obviously the newer movement, the fact that it's manual wind. It comes in the classic iconic Speedmaster format. But again, I think this watch just misses the mark in terms of price point. And maybe that's just a trend with overall watch brands where the retail prices are just kind of increasing astronomically. And I need to change my maybe my mindset that, listen, these are just the new prices for watches. But at the end of the day, I think they could have done a little bit better. I would have loved to see this watch at the 12,000 or under price category. And I think it would have been a much better seller at retail overall, but we'll see. The jury is still out on that one. Now, next up is a couple of limited edition releases from my personal favorite independent watch brand, and that is MB&F, with the release of the MB&F LM Sequential Evo and LM Perpetual in the Longhorn edition. Now, we saw the Longhorn edition come out as a unique piece release. I believe it was for OnlyWatch or some kind of special charity in the LM1 format. That silver background with the black subdials, along with, of course, these kind of Longhorn lugs, as this model has kind of been distinguished by, really set the watch off. I think it's a great overall design. Nothing super surprising or crazy overall, especially considering it's the 25th anniversary of MB&F. I'm expecting a lot of great new releases this year. These are two great releases. I'm sure they'll sell out very quickly if they haven't already sold out. And of course, I'm a big fan of the brand. I'm a big fan of both the LM Perpetual and the Sequential Evo. So, when it comes to these two watches, I obviously think they're absolute knockout hits. Great releases from MB&F. Now, another super hyped up watch, a watch that we just recently saw on Mark Wahlberg's wrist on Instagram, and that is the new Tudor Flamingo Blue Black Bay chronograph. Now, personally, I'll just be honest, the color is not for me. I didn't love the release overall. I think they could have done it in a better way. Although I do like the idea of using celebrities, or at least ambassadors, as a means of kind of teasing new releases. It kind of keeps things fun and interesting. I think that overall, just the color itself just doesn't appeal to me all that much. I like the pink much more, just because it's kind of a lot more unique. But it's a watch that I'm sure will be very, very popular on the secondary market. As a Tudor dealer ourselves, we're not expecting many of them. I think we got like 3 Black Bay pinks overall. So yeah, this is definitely something that's going to be a very, very hard watch to get. No doubt about it, it's going to be hyped up on the secondary market. So yeah, it doesn't matter my opinion about the watch. This is a great release overall, I'm sure, for fans of the Tudor brand and, of course, fans of this Black Bay chronograph format, as it's just kind of a new colorway. And I'm really excited for Tudor to kind of be playing with colors like this, although I do wish they would make a smaller chronograph in terms of case size and diameter, like they did, for example, with the Black Bay 58 GMT. I think it lends itself more to wear for a larger wrist, which is totally fine. But for those who have kind of slimmer wrists and like kind of smaller watches, this just isn't suited for you. Like for myself, for example, the 6 1/4 inch wrist, there's no way I can pull this off. And again, the color is just not for me personally, not to my taste. But again, a great release overall from Tudor, and I'm sure it'll be wildly popular. Next up is probably one of my favorite releases so far this year, and that is from the LUC collection from Chopard, and it is the Chopard Lunar 1. It features a perpetual calendar movement with a big day complication and a moon phase at 6 o'clock and a stunning salmon dial with, of course, that beautiful micro rotor movement that is so distinct from Chopard. I love this format. I think it's an absolutely beautiful wristwatch. I'm not really going to wax poetic about it because you can kind of look at it and just see just how perfect of a design I think this is. Really kind of reminiscent of an old school perpetual calendar, but brought to the 21st century. I'm loving what Chopard is doing, especially recently with the LUC collection. I think they're one of those underrated sleeper brands that I think more people need to pay attention to because they've been releasing a lot of great watches over the last couple of years. And just overall, generally, I think this is a beautiful timepiece. Next up is the most expensive watch released on the list, and that is the update to Grupo Forsi's Handmade 1 with the new Handmade 2. Now, it's a watch that comes in at almost 700,000 US dollars, if not more than that. It's a watch that was recently featured, at least the Handmade 1, on Mark Zuckerberg's wrist, and so it definitely gained a lot of acclaim, and I think the timing of this release is absolutely perfect given that. But overall, the eye-watering price point is definitely not something that's so attractive, I'm sure, to most mere mortals who are watching this video. as something that's 700,000 that is just not going to be obtainable for the masses. But of course, you can't help but respect just the incredible amount of handwork that's done. This watch made, I think, almost 95% by hand using old school techniques. So there's definitely a fondness and appreciation for myself, just the fact that this watch is made in the old school methods. But yeah, it's crazy to think about the price of this wristwatch and just how much kind of know-how we've lost over the years, given the price of this watch, and ultimately the fact that we just can't recreate watches by hand like we used to. It's incredible the fact that we can't do it anymore, and it sucks to know that we lost so much innovation and so much know-how over the years, but it's cool to see Grupo Forsey kind of paying homage to history and making sure that the survival of these kind of handmade artisanal crafts are going to be maintained for the future. Now let's pivot to LVMH Watch Week, which saw a number of new releases. Probably my favorite release from them was actually from Daniel Roth, and it is the subscription ultra-thin wristwatch that features essentially just a time-only watch in yellow gold. Super thin, obviously, and I think it's just a beautiful timepiece overall. But again, it's one of those ones that as soon as I saw the sticker price, it made me like a little bit in shock. I mean, this is a time-only wristwatch in yellow gold. Okay, this movement is absolutely stunning, made by La Fabrique du Temps, who of course is owned by LVMH, making a beautiful rendition of a classic Daniel Roth wristwatch. But overall, I have to say that the price point at over $50,000 is just not attractive at all. The whole premise, in my opinion, about the ownership of independents is the fact that they were packed with ingenuity at really, really solid price points. And I feel that, especially with the rise of independents, the price points specifically at retail from a lot of these independents have gone up to astronomical lengths. And listen, this is just my personal opinion. I don't think it's really that justified. Again, the main selling point of an independent to me was incredible innovation at an attainable or at least a fair and reasonable price point. But at $50,000 for a time-only watch, okay, that's beautifully finished, that of course is hand finished and handmade to many respects, it's just too much. I'm sorry, but there's no value proposition there for me. If I'm going to critique, for example, Patek Philippe and a Calatrava like a 5226, for example, being $40,000, okay, it doesn't have this level of finishing, but this is $10,000 more expensive. Now, is that worth it? Of course, that's definitely up to you and your personal opinion. I personally just don't see it. I think this is a beautiful $30,000 wristwatch at retail, not $50,000. That's just my personal opinion. It's the way that I see it. And again, maybe my mindset has completely changed, or needs to change rather, to these newer price points that brands are going to charge for their watches for the future. But I just don't see the value of a time-only wristwatch at $50,000, no matter how well it's finished. Just my opinion. Feel free to disagree with it down in the comments below. And last but certainly not least is the new release of a TAG Heuer glass box in a purple dial. Absolutely beautiful release. I love this wristwatch, paying kind of homage to the original TAG Heuer glass boxes. And we've seen these kind of heritage-inspired designs, I would say going back to 2022, when they released, I believe it was the 60th anniversary of the Carrera, with this beautiful kind of panda-style dial and 39 millimeters. And this is just an absolutely perfect wristwatch in terms of size proportions. I think the diameter is 39 millimeter, lug to lug is 46 millimeters, which is universally well wearing. And I think that the case diameter at 14 millimeters, although it is on the thicker side, still will wear very well, as the majority of the thickness actually comes from that sapphire crystal. So for the most part, I think this is a beautiful release. The purple is not to my taste overall, but I like the fact that they're experimenting with colors in a kind of model that I think is a really, really great format. And I'm excited to see what the future holds for this lineup. I think that the glass box is going to be a successful model line for TAG Heuer in the future, and I hope to see new additions in the future. So guys, this is my list of some of my favorite releases that I felt either missed the mark or actually were really, really nice releases from a number of different brands. Let me know what you think down in the comments below of all of these releases, or just some of them. And also let me know down in the comments below what you feel are some of the best releases so far in your opinion this year in 2025, and what you are hoping to see from some brands. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you liked the video. Subscribe for more videos like this in the future. My name is Marco for the Berdines Jewelry YouTube channel, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.